March 6, 2025, a date that would be seared into the memory of Guayaquil forever. In Socio Vivienda, Guayaquil, the afternoon heat pressed down as children played in the narrow streets, their laughter echoing off the concrete walls. Life for a moment seemed almost normal despite the tension that had been building for months. Suddenly the peace shattered. A convoy of dark SUVs screeched to a halt, engines roaring, tires spitting dust into the air. 20 armed men, members of the feared Tiburones gang, poured out, guns drawn and faces set with grim determination. They unleashed a brutal assault on a rival faction, targeting homes with chilling precision. Gunfire echoed through the neighborhood. Doors were kicked in, windows shattered, and chaos erupted in seconds. People were dragged out and executed in the street, their cries silenced by gunfire. Officially, 22 dead, men, women, even teenagers. Locals say the real number was closer to 40. Families mourned in disbelief, neighbors whispered about the missing. It was a massacre, one of Ecuador's deadliest, and it happened in broad daylight, in full view of the community. This was no distant battle. Urban warfare had arrived in a community of families, shattering any illusion of safety. The Socio Vivienda massacre marked a horrifying escalation. Nowhere was safe, not even the most ordinary of neighborhoods. Years of simmering violence, assassinations, extortion, prison riots had finally exploded into open war on the streets. The shadow state of gangs stepped into the light, showing their power and utter disregard for life. Their message was clear: they ruled these streets. Now, for Guayaquil and all Ecuador, it was a psychological blow. The state had lost control and fear seeped into every home. The massacre wasn't just another statistic, it was a televised trauma, a warning to the nation that no one was untouchable. The rules had changed overnight. The war was now on everyone's doorstep, and the city's sense of normalcy was gone. The question was no longer if the violence would touch them, but when. Every family waited, anxious, for the next eruption. Guayaquil had reached its breaking point, a city forever changed, standing on the edge of something even darker. Guayaquil, once celebrated as the Pearl of the Pacific, was a city known for its vibrant culture, bustling commerce, and proud history. Its riverside promenades and lively neighborhoods drew visitors from across the world, eager to experience Ecuador's beating heart. Today, it remains Ecuador's largest city and economic engine, a metropolis where millions live, work, and dream of a better future. Its port, once a symbol of opportunity and global trade, has now become a gateway for cocaine trafficking, drawing the attention of powerful international cartels and criminal organizations. Guayaquil's proximity to Colombia and Peru, two of the world's largest cocaine producers, transformed Ecuador from a mere transit point into a major operations hub for the drug trade. Gangs now exploit the port to smuggle cocaine, turning neighborhoods like Socio Vivienda into fortified strongholds where fear and violence have become part of daily life. With little state presence, gangs impose their own rules, deciding who enters, who pays, and even who survives. Their power is felt on every corner, in every shadow. For residents, the gang is the daily reality. The state is a distant idea, unable to protect or provide justice. In 2023, Ecuador's homicide rate soared to the highest in Latin America, with Guayaquil at the epicenter of this deadly surge. The city's streets have become battlegrounds. Over 570 gang-related violent events rocked the city in 2024 alone, leaving families shattered and communities living in constant fear. The violence is not random. It is calculated, a relentless war for control of the port, the neighborhoods, and the very soul of Guayaquil. The pearl's luster has faded, replaced by the ever-growing shadow of organized crime, leaving a city struggling to reclaim its former glory. Guayaquil's violence isn't the work of a single cartel, but a bloody fragmentation of gangs. Los Choneros once dominated, led by Fito from prison. His fall shattered the fragile order. New groups, Los Tiburones, Los Lobos, emerged, fighting for territory and drug profits. Prison massacres spilled into the streets. Each leader's arrest or death triggered new chaos. The Socio Vivienda massacre followed the arrest of Tiburones' leader. Los Choneros' collapse after Fito's extradition sparked more bloodshed. Los Lobos now aggressively consolidate power, forming alliances and seeking monopoly over crime. With up to 60,000 gang members, these groups are a paramilitary force, well-armed, well-funded, and ruthless. Ordinary citizens are caught in the crossfire of this endless war. Socio Vivienda was meant to offer hope, a new start for thousands of families who dreamed of safety and stability. The government promised a better life, with new homes and a sense of belonging for people who had struggled for years. Instead, it became a battleground ruled by gangs in the absence of the state. The streets that once echoed with laughter soon filled with fear and uncertainty. Residents paid vacunas, extortion money, just to survive another day, forced to choose between feeding their families and paying off threats. Gangs controlled everything: gas, internet, even the right to walk down your own street. Daily life became a negotiation with danger. The massacre was the climax of this reign, a brutal eruption that shattered what little peace remained. Gunmen hunted rivals, but the violence was indiscriminate. No one was truly safe, not children, not the elderly, not even those who tried to stay invisible. "We hid under the bed," one resident recalled, describing the terror that gripped every home. Every gunshot, we thought they were coming for us. The nights stretched on, filled with dread and sleeplessness. Afterward, silence fell. Then, a mass exodus. The neighborhood emptied almost overnight, as families realized staying meant risking everything. Hundreds, maybe thousands, fled with what they could carry, leaving behind memories, possessions, and the hope that once brought them here. Socio Vivienda became a ghost town, abandoned out of terror. The playgrounds grew silent, and the homes stood empty, haunted by what happened. There was no government help, just trauma and displacement. The promises of safety and support vanished, leaving only scars. Children stopped speaking, too afraid to attend school, their laughter and curiosity replaced by silence and fear. The massacre erased more than lives, it erased a community. The bonds that once held neighbors together were broken. It was a stark lesson in the cost of letting organized crime fester, and in the consequences of neglecting those most in need. Fear, not hope, now defines Socio Vivienda. The sense of community has been replaced by suspicion and loss. The scars may never heal, and the memory of what was lost lingers in every empty room and every shattered dream. In January 2024, President Daniel Noboa declared an internal armed conflict after gangs stormed a Guayaquil news station. 22 gangs were labeled terrorist organizations, unleashing the military onto the streets. Soldiers patrolled neighborhoods, raided homes, and took over prisons. For a moment, violence dipped. The government boasted record drug seizures and arrests. Citizens felt a brief sense of security, but gangs adapted, retreating, decentralizing, and shifting tactics. Violence mutated. Extortion and kidnappings became more sophisticated. By early 2025, homicides surged again, up 40% from the previous year. The militarized approach brought human rights abuses, arbitrary detentions, torture, and extrajudicial killings. Most detainees were released without charge, revealing a dragnet that swept up many innocents. The government faced a dilemma: fight terror with force, but risk becoming what it opposed. The cycle of violence continued, with no easy solution in sight. For Guayaquil's citizens, the gang war is daily life. Extortion, vacunas, is everywhere. Refuse to pay, and you risk your life. Fear has emptied public spaces. Parents keep children home. Schools are targets for extortion and recruitment. Trust is gone. Anyone could be a gang lookout. Hypervigilance is exhausting, leaving communities isolated and traumatized. Thousands have fled their homes, becoming invisible refugees in their own country. Businesses close, economies collapse, and poverty deepens, fueling the cycle. The human cost is measured in lost lives, abandoned homes, and shattered childhoods. Hopelessness hangs over a city once full of promise. The war's true toll is written on every street and in every silent home. Guayaquil's crisis is global in origin. The 2016 Colombian peace accord left drug routes open for Mexican and Albanian cartels, who saw Ecuador as a new base. These cartels franchised local gangs, providing money and weapons in exchange for moving cocaine through Guayaquil's port. Foreign cash and arms supercharged local rivalries, turning turf wars into high-stakes battles. Past policies, like legalizing gangs as cultural associations, let them grow and infiltrate the state. Later, funding cuts to prisons gave gangs command centers behind bars. Dollarization made Ecuador a money-laundering haven for cartels. International forces, shifting policies, and a dollarized economy created the perfect storm for organized crime. Military force alone can't solve Guayaquil's crisis. Socio-vivienda and similar areas lack basic services, schools, healthcare, jobs. When soldiers leave, gangs return, filling the power vacuum. Residents are trapped between military raids and gang rule. Gangs, rooted in communities, outlast temporary crackdowns. Corruption in police, courts, and politics lets gang leaders operate with impunity. Human rights abuses by the state erode trust and push youth toward gangs. Real change needs more than force. It requires justice, community engagement, and opportunity. Without this, the cycle of violence will never end. December 17, 2025. Guayaquil stands at a crossroads, caught between gangs and a government betting on military might. If trends continue, violence will worsen, and Ecuador could become one of the world's most dangerous places. But hope remains in a new approach, combining smart security with deep social investment. The state must compete with gangs, restoring presence in neighborhoods with teachers, doctors, and jobs. Giving youth alternatives to crime is essential. Fighting corruption is the hardest battle, requiring a stronger justice system and protection for honest officials. International partnerships are vital for intelligence and dismantling criminal networks. Guayaquil's fight is global, not just local. The city's spirit endures in its people's resilience and their yearning for peace. The path forward demands vision, commitment, and rebuilding, one neighborhood at a time. Only then can laughter return, drowning out the echoes of gunfire.